Hello there, it's Stephen Jecht Murray here on the Pauper Flophouse over at numotgaming.com. Rather than a established deck type, I'm tackling a different style, one that people have been trying to make work since Eldritch Moon's been out, and it is theoretically a merge deck, but I've also added the Trinket Mage package. So I've labeled this one Trinket Mage. You know, like you're a little bit drunk when describing this card's name. So I'm going to go into more detail on the article over at No Mod Gaming about how I ended up with this. But I'm going to go over the deck list right now. We have a full 8 sack lands of the Evolving Wilds Terramorphic Expanse variety. Which is because otherwise the mana is fairly bad. Got like basically a bunch of tricolor lands. As a result of using these lands and not using the enter the battlefield tapped gain a life lands, we've really cut down on double colored cards. Basically everything in our deck is single color, except from like using this guy on the turn that you play it, for example. Then we have 4 forests, 4 islands, 3 mountains in order of, usefulness to have. And we have 3 artifact lands in case we need to get any of the colors untapped following a Trinket Mage. So one of the main problems of trying the blue-green, like focused Emerge decks, like playing like Primal Empath and just sticking those 2 colors, is that it's pretty hard to get away with playing no removal in this current Pauper format. There are too many decks that trying to murder you while you set up. And while you may have a fairly relentless slow beatdown assault from all these like value creatures, if your opponent's just murdering you with a Delver, you're not going to get anywhere. So as a result, we have a removal package. You have 3 Flame Slashes, and a Lightning Bolt, and 2 Pirate Spell Bombs, since I kept running out of Pirate Spell Bombs defined. We even have an Aether Spell Bomb for people doing mean things with like a No-Moss Crusher, or making like an early Gurmag Angler or something like that. We also have some Steam Core Weird, one of my favourite cards. Great to have an excuse to play this guy. Whipping him out, killing a thing, and then emerging out of it. It's pretty sweet. We have some equipments defined, because we need to get our opponents dead too. Sometimes these things don't get the job done, and these guys are just like lying around doing nothing. Silver Life Staff's really good against, the various red decks. So playing a Miser 1 main deck, even though it's not great against everybody. Spellstarter Sprite. Only 2 Spellstarter Sprites, which looks really weird, but it's like another cheap card that you can emerge out of. And basically everyone has some kind of spell you can counter, so you rarely fail to get value from it. And nobody ever sees it coming, which is nice. A couple of Sylvan Rangers over like Elvish Visionaries, because like the deck is pretty mana hungry. So basically every time I cast Elvish Visionary when testing the deck before, I've just wanted to get a land on turn 2. So just switched up to Sylvan Ranger. Coiling Oracle, slightly awkward to cast if you're like desperately needing to Flame Slash something on like turn 1 or 2. But the times where you flip a land up and get like a turn ahead makes it worthwhile, as far as I'm concerned. At least though so far. I might get screwed every match this league. We have, a bunch of Seagate Oracles to... This is semi-mandatory, I guess. A bunch of Trinket Mages to get all these things. See, at first I only played like a mini Trinket Mage package, but every time I played a match, I kept thinking that maybe I should just keep playing more Trinket Mages. One of the reasons I started with the mini Trinket Mage package was because I played against an opponent testing out a version with like a bunch of Rancors and Young Wolves and stuff, and I liked the ability of the deck to play Rancors to give, you know, the Coiling Oracles and so on extra threats. But I didn't want to just jam a ton of Rancors in my deck since they don't really go along with the overall plan that well, like if you just have a bunch. So just having like one Bone Splitter to fetch expanded into, well, more removal and so on. Wickerbow Elder is kind of cheeky in the main deck. Not everyone has something to destroy, and against those opponents it's a bit weak. But, you know, the times it's good, it's really good. And if you're desperate to get a 4/4 rather than a 3/3, you can always like blow up one of your artifact lands or something. Although that's obviously not the ideal plan. And it does give you outs to like the Hexproof deck and that sort of thing game 1, if you just happen to mize it. 4 Muldrifters, because they're just Muldrifter. And then we have our Emerge guys. We're not super focused on the Emerge cards, as you can tell. There's only 6 of them. But, I mean, Retrogress pretty good. Out of the Horde Swarm's pretty good. Although I kept finding Out of the Horde Swarm to not be as good as I was expecting it to be. Like, anytime I had multiples in my hand, like, if one of them wasn't going to get the job done, then the second one usually wasn't going to either. So there's the main deck. We have, you know, so much value. It's pretty sweet. So let's have a look over at the sideboard. I mean, you can already see it. We have the Blast package, since we're playing blue and red. Pyroblast is the best thing you can play, basically, in Pauper, since, you know, counters Muldrifters, destroys Delvers, counters Peregrine Drakes, all that good stuff. Hydroblasts, I'm down to 3 Hydroblasts because I actually haven't played against that many red decks recently. And it's not that great sometimes, like against some of the other blue-red decks. I mean, it is definitely very good, but I needed more space to put speed cards in my deck, so I'm just going to wing it with 3. We have a bunch of 1-0s. We have a Gorilla Shaman. We have a Ancient Grudge. We already have some Flame Slashes in the main deck, and like this Elder. So I'm thinking like maybe we don't need to max out on affinity cards, even though I see affinity quite often. Like our creatures are actually relevant against affinity because we can like throw them in the way. So I'm hoping that between the bunch of removal in our main deck and like this Ancient Grudge and Gorilla Shaman should be fine. Ancient Grudge, I wanted to play Ancient Grudge because it is the type of card that you can bring in against like a blue-black deck playing a bunch of Pristine Talismans, or like a mono-blue deck that's playing like Bone Splitter and stuff. It's just, if you just play one, if you draw it and they don't happen to have that artifact, that's fine. But if you do draw it, it then negates like their first Pristine Talisman and the next one, and or gets like a second counter spell, or against like decks trying to get you with Bone Splitters and like Spire Golems, then it's the same deal there. You can like bring in one, whereas like Gorilla Shaman isn't really what you want, and I don't think you would bring in like too many other, but like the upside of mising your Ancient Grudge against those decks is super high. You can also bring in against Werewolf decks, because if there's anything a Werewolf hates, it's a Collar, especially Avacyn's Collar, the symbol of her church. We have a Viridian Longbow. I was definitely considering having this one in the main deck, and it could well be correct too, but it's in the sideboard for now. Obviously good against like elves, quite good against like white weenie type decks that pop up now and again, quite good against, well, multiple decks really, you know the score. one thing to note is the absence of Electrickery, since basically everyone plays around it anyway. I thought if I don't play any, people will play around it, and I can just fight them with like normal removal spells and like just one longbow. Since if they have like a spider silk armor or something, you can move the longbow around to kill off their creatures anyway. Whereas I didn't want to risk getting Electrickery dead draws. And if people are like sideboarding against the Electrickery and taking out all their 1-drops or most of their 1-drops or whatever, that's cool. You can still longbow them. Relic is a bit better against the Drake decks in this deck rather than a purely aggressive deck, since we can search it up, so we can just play one of them. We don't really use the graveyard ourselves, so it doesn't harm us if we just cycle it. And we can actually sort of keep up in like the card advantage department with Drake. Like we have so many like 2-for-1s ourselves that if we stop them from comboing, it's actually good, because then we are not just losing the game anyway. And it also happens to mise the occasional graveyard-based deck, which is nice. And then we have a Serene Heart or 2 to defeat the Bogles deck, which we basically can't beat if we don't draw a Serene Heart. Or a Tangle. It's possible to mise a game against the Aura deck using Tangle as well. You know, they just go all in with like one creature, but you happen to have like a random beatdown squad and you fog their Armadillo Cloak turn. Tangle also relevant against like the Blitz decks and like the Stompy decks, so it's you know, all round pretty good. It's like solid sideboard cards. So I'm gonna go dive into League and hopefully not go 0-5. See you there.